Meu nome é Cairo Santos e eu sou kicker e único brasileiro jogando na NFL. Cada chute, cada jarda conquistada, cada passo me levou para mais perto dos meus sonhos. Agora, a cada R$200 em compras com seu Visa cadastrado, você tem a chance de ficar mais perto do sonho de assistir ao Super Bowl 59. E usando o seu cartão de débito, você ainda concorre a prêmios diários de até R$1.000. Não importa o tamanho do seu sonho, dê o primeiro passo. Visa, apoiando seus passos aonde você quiser chegar.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. I'm Kirk Henderson. I'm joined, as always, by Josh Bowe. We are co-editors over at MavsMoneyball.com, as well as runners of this podcast here. You are joining us. It is Sunday, November 10th. It's just before 9:45. The Dallas Mavericks played a 7 o'clock game against the Denver Nuggets in Denver, and they lost 122 to 120. How you doing, Josh?
Doing okay. It's kind of funny. I feel like you used all your venom for the Phoenix game on Friday, and I can just tell already. Like, we didn't really talk too much during pre-show, but it sounds like you don't have the fight in you to get real pissed off about this one.
Right?
Am I reading the room, or are you pretty mad?
No,
I'm trying to gauge. I like gauging your emotion at the start of the show because that helps temper me what I need to bring, how much I need to balance it out.
I earnestly thought there were elements of that Suns game that were unfair. And then you go read the last 2-minute report, and it's essentially Obi-Wan Kenobi telling you that these are not the droids you're looking for. There were no incorrect non-calls. There were no incorrect calls in the 2-minute report, to which I politely tell the NBA, go fuck yourself. Like, just, if you want to lie, the way they've gone back on the way that they've decided to referee these games, I don't know what to do. It's made the product worse tangibly again. But that was that game. I had a pretty good time with this game. The Mavericks got punched in the mouth pretty early by the Nuggets. They scored 24 points in the first 5.5 minutes of action, and I was sitting there going, "Oh, this is not going to be good." Only for the Mavericks to surrender. They gave up 20 points over the next 12 minutes of action. Like, they buckled down, they got it together, they fought back and played some better defense. The third quarter was a bit of a mess again, just in moments. Like, the Mavericks just have moments where they're really ugly. And then Kyrie Irving, it dawned on the Mavericks that Kyrie Irving was just absolutely on NBA Jam version of on fire, and he single-handedly brought the Mavericks back into it in the fourth quarter. Kudos to the other Mavericks for realizing this. Gets down to the stretch. The Mavericks were up 2. Were they up 2?
They were up 2.
They were up 2, and for some reason, Luka decided to take a logo 3 that was the equivalent of a turnover. And let me be clear. If it had gone in, I would have been happy with it. But I was doing a live stream on playback, and I just talked about how Luka was getting out of the way and giving the ball to the hot hand. He had passed to Kyrie 6 times in a row and let him go to work. And then he just decided to take that shot. And it was an open shot because it was really far away. But
I was about to be like, I don't know. It was a 30-footer.
It was still 30-footer. And it's when it goes in, you're like, oh, this is amazing. But in that situation against the team, which the Mavericks were having trouble stopping, it was not the right shot. It just wasn't the right shot in that moment. Did they score again after that?
No, that was the Kyrie's bucket with 1:40 left was the last points they scored.
And that's heinous.
Yeah.
From an NBA coaching and player execution perspective, you rally all the way back and you run into this sort of problem and you just play hero ball. Like, I appreciate how amazing Kyrie had been, but these were not good. It was an awful last 90 seconds of basketball once again. And I don't really know where the blame starts and ends with that. What do you think?
It's weird because I think I can already tell, like, people are pretty frustrated that the team is 5-5, and I get it. They're 500 after 10 games,
which they should be. Let's be clear about that. You should be pissed off that the Mavericks are 500.
But also, if PJ and Lively were healthy for these last 2 games, they are probably 7-3. So, but again, they were hurt. So you play the deck that you're dealt, but the hand that you're dealt. But I just don't know. I just can't get to here we go again. This is going to be a rocky season. This isn't a contender. When, like, in my mind, Derek Lively is either the third most important or second most important player on the floor for this team, depending on how the other top 2 guys are playing. He's that important. At worst, he's your third most important player, and he's not on the floor. And you lose 2 close games to 2 contenders.
Well, and from a big picture perspective,
I just can't get to this isn't a contender. Like, I get you're mad, and it's not good that they're starting 500 after 10 games because they're gonna have to dig themselves out of a little bit of a hole again. Like, that's not good. But I don't think it's like an indictment of the ceiling of this team necessarily.
I don't either, but I am worried in the sense that basketball seasons are really long. Guys go through ups and downs, and they are wasting a masterful segment of Kyrie Irving basketball. Kyrie has been the best player on the Mavericks through 10 games, and the fact that they're 5-5 illustrates kind of that's why I'm sure at this stage in his career, he's probably more willing to be the number 2 option in this, that, and the other situation. So I'm less fired up the other night because the refereeing impacted that game. Like, we kept talking about how it was a fun game, and it was fun in that it was kind of up and down, but the refs played a heavy involvement with it, and that part is not fun. Tonight, I didn't think about the refs much. I think
Except
Jokic,
for that one call.
But
then he missed 2 free throws, so it didn't really. He
missed 2 free throws, yeah. So Luka flies past Murray. Murray leans in and executes, draws a foul, and in the written and understanding rule of how the law works. I'm sorry, the law. The NBA interpretations of the rules works. Luka fouled him. Okay?
It's a crappy play. It's
a crappy play because he leaned in and Luka's apparently his shoulder blade fouled Jamal Murray.
Yeah,
but the way
that's how they call it.
And one of the things I think, if you're going to complain about the call, what I'm going to complain about is they told us they weren't calling that shit anymore.
They didn't in the second half of last season.
So I'm just like, what? NBA is, it's like, why are we going back to a worse style of basketball? Now, that's a big picture thing. It ultimately made no difference in the game because the Mavericks lost by 2, not by 1. So I don't really care about it. I think that my other mild complaint is, like, Jokic just sort of gets away with a lot of stuff, but he's MVP. Luka gets away with a lot of stuff. It's just different stuff. So
yeah.
I just my passion for why the Mavericks lost this game is more buried in the fact of why, when you have 2 of the best players alive, do you go to mano-a-mano basketball when you have dribble handoffs, you have elevator plays that work, you have a lot of different optionality with skilled NBA players to execute it. I understand that we're down. The Mavericks are down multiple starters right now. I thought a lot of the team played admirably. Hardy and Omax did not play very well. I don't like in a normal situation, the Mavericks aren't relying on Hardy and Omax. They're just not. I don't want to Omax is just he's just such a useless being at the moment, and he shouldn't be put in these situations to play because he's not ready to play, but he has to. So, but you get your whole component of guys, or even one more guy. Everybody else is bumped down, and maybe you sneak off with a win in this one. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. Well, yeah. Like I said, I think if Lively or Washington play, they win. And everyone is going to disagree with you about Hardy and Prosper wouldn't normally, because everyone's going to look at you and say, well, why isn't Grimes playing those 19 minutes?
Which is a great question.
Which I don't know if you want to get into that now, but we kind of talked about that after the Phoenix game. But personally, I'm going to put conspiracy tinfoil hat theory Josh right now. So this is me talking out my butt. I know sometimes we talk to people that know things, but I don't know anything about this situation.
Me either.
But it's reading the tea leaves. It looks like a situation where the front office made a move that wasn't in tune with the coach. I don't know how much Jason Kidd liked Tim Hardaway Jr., but he was a vet, and I know that coaches typically prefer vets. Not trying to say Grimes is like a rookie or a prospect. He's been in the league for 4 seasons now, or whatever, 3 or 4 seasons. But considerable less experience than Tim Hardaway Jr. And coaches, as much as vets can frustrate fans, coaches lean on they would rather have a vet making a mistake than a young player. That's just kind of how most coaches are wired. I mean, we lived through that with the Rick Carlisle era. That's not something that's unique to Jason Kidd. But with the way this is playing out and the way theoretically Grimes fits and the way it's not that he's played great. I don't think he has necessarily shown in his limited minutes that he is a lock, surefire, this guy's got to be in the rotation. But he's never really gotten a consistent chance. I mean, he's averaging 12 minutes a game this season. And he just seems to get yanked for he has a very short hook. In some of these games, he played 10 minutes against the Pacers, he missed a shot, and I think that's when he got pulled. That Suns game, he played 9 minutes. I think he had a bad defensive possession, and he got pulled. So, to me, that comes from, okay, so Kidd is starting at a level of, you have to earn my trust, which to me doesn't sound like he was necessarily, super on board with that trade, because why would you trade, if Kidd was... You know what I mean? This just screams of a front office making a move and Kidd being you can make it, but I don't like this move. And we saw that with Christian Wood, where even though Christian Wood gave plenty of people headaches with his performance on that team, on that roster, he probably needed to play more. And it was pretty evident that Jason Kidd really wanted nothing to do with him. And I think that's just, I wonder if that's playing out again, where the front office made a move that wasn't in tune with their coaching staff. Because it's just weird, the minutes are kind of weird. But we talked about this, the Phoenix game. We're not in practice. We're not in the locker room. We have no idea what's going on outside of these games to know what's influencing Kidd's decision here. Because for all we know, there could, Grimes could be having some really crappy practices. Maybe he's dogging it in practice and Kidd is kind of over it. I don't know. We don't know that yet. So, but that's from the available kind of what we can look at and what we know about Kidd and what we know about the team. That's just kind of where I'm leaning.
This is an interesting one. I want to pivot back after the break, and I don't know if you can hear my dog just lovingly drinking water.
No, you're good. I don't hear it.
Podcast. That's good.
You're good.
She stopped to look at me. Gosh, guys, Omax is I want to talk about this because I asked a question in the chat. I want you guys to think about this. We'll talk about this question a little bit when I get back outside, or when we get back from break. But outside of PJ Washington, who on the Mavericks has been good at defense this year? I would argue Kyrie Irving and probably Derek Lively, and even maybe not even him to a certain extent, but that's largely due to minutes played and some of the losses they've had where he's been bad. But I want to talk about this when we get back. I want to really just discuss it and think about it for a second. All right. Thank you guys for helping and hanging out here with us at Pod Maverick. We're live after the game. There's a number of people hanging out in here. We have a good time. If you could consider liking the stream, if you're new to the channel here, consider giving us a subscription. We go live after every game, and after a lot of games, including this one tonight, we will have a second post-game show where if you want to voice your opinions, your thoughts, your concerns, your frustrations, you can come and talk a little basketball with me up here. It's really easy to join, and it's fun, too. Starting next week, Josh and I might have a real live sponsor to talk about during the show, too, so that's going to be kind of fun. If you're listening on the audio stream, Give us a review if you're subscribed. If you've listened to the show regularly, leave us 5 stars or whatever works for you, or a snarky comment about me. I read them all. Everything. I just love our fan base. Everybody has a lot of fun. If you're watching on the video a little later down the line, please consider leaving a comment. I really enjoy reading those comments after the fact. I'm going to insert some audio ads now, and then we can get back to talking about the Grimes situation and really just sort of elements of the Mavericks defense as a whole. We'll be right back.
Não é tempo técnico, mas é intervalo aqui no podcast. Já imaginou se seu time tivesse um seguro para não perder nunca? Pois é, isso não existe. Mas com a Zurich Seguros, quem não perde nunca é você. Na Zurich Seguros, os planos se adequam às suas necessidades em qualquer momento da sua vida. Seja seguro de auto, residência, vida e muito mais. Diferente de alguns times, na Zurich Seguros você pode confiar. Para saber mais, acesse zurich.com.br ou consulte seu corretor.
Okay, so I asked a question before the break about who has been like what you would consider decent on Mavs defense. And so it's a hard question to ask, and it's a harder question to answer because I think in a vacuum, particular guys are good at defense or particular guys are bad or mediocre or whatnot. And I think we talked a little bit about how the game is being called. I think elements of how the game is being called is impacting how the Mavericks play defense. I don't think they're as physical as they would like to be. And I think and that is having a cascading effect. One of the areas where Luka was very good last year from February on was, and you could see this in the individual metrics, even though we largely know not to read individual metrics, is Luka would give body blows. Frankly, he would hit guys. He would take the first drive. He would step in front of it. He was very physical on the ball, and the refs just weren't calling that sort of stuff. And it went all the way down into the lane too. Now, largely because I think it's regular season, I don't think we see guys regularly doing that. Luka took one in the first quarter from, I think, Christian Braun attacking him and swatted Braun backwards. And then a little later in the second quarter, it was either the same guy or maybe it was one of the other Nuggets young guys. Luka just olayed and let him go right by. And that's where you just look at this and you say, all right, this is a regular season. It's very frustrating for us, for me in particular, just because I'm a passionate game-to-game guy. And it just drives me crazy when these guys don't play hard every possession. And there's some of this that goes on night to night, where it's just like these guys take possessions off, things happen, they figure they can get the score back. And the worst part about that is they're usually right. A single possession rarely defines an entire game. And unfortunately, with the Mavericks injuries and some of the cascade and what that means to the roster decisions, you're just not seeing very good team defense from the Mavericks right now. And I don't really think there's much to be done about that other than hope that guys get healthy and hope they figure it out. The grind, and again, I'm talking a lot here. I apologize. The Grimes question, it's maddening. I'm of the sort where I think Jason Kidd lurks on Twitter and sees people talking about it, and he's like, ha ha ha, fuck those guys. Because if you don't think he does this, if you don't think he reads what everybody puts out there and what everybody says about him, I will simply say that I know with near 100% certainty, Jason Kidd is a reader of all the Mavs content out there. He lurks on Twitter, and he is interested in what people have to say about him. And we also know from his playing days, he is incredibly petty. I said a lot there, Josh. What do you think?
No. I'm totally with you. I remember, and to be fair, this was very simple. I remember there was a game against the Pacers. I think it was during the bad season, the lottery season before Lively. Or maybe it wasn't. Or maybe it was last season. I think it was maybe the Pacers game before the one they lost right before they started kickstarting their second half. I remember saying something like, wow, why aren't the Mavericks putting PJ on Miles Turner and switching everything and putting Daniel Gafford on the least threatening player off ball? And then the Mavericks in the second half opened the second half defensively doing that. To be fair, that is a very simple adjustment that, like, I'm not taking credit for that. I just thought that was funny. Because we know that we feel like he lurks because he says stuff in post-game comments that like indicates that he hears the chatter. about what's going on. But you made the interesting point, like their defense, like who's playing well defensively. And really you look at the team, and when you think about how badass their defense was last season, let's strip away the fact that the refs are not officiating the games like they did in the second half of last season. Because you
got to adjust to that.
There's no further analysis to us for that. Like the Mavericks beat the crap out of people and now they're not being allowed to. Like I can't say anything like they need to adjust. Like I can't be like, well, they need to keep playing that way and the refs are going to call. Like, you can't control the refs. You can only control the way that the game's being refed in front of you. Like you can't just keep playing like you did and assume that they're going to change it. So you got to adjust. So they need to foul less. They had 17 fouls tonight, which isn't great, but that's not like their worst number I think they've seen this year. But Gafford had 5 fouls, and you saw that in the final 3 minutes of the game. Like he just did not guard Jokic with the physicality that I think he wanted to, and Jokic felt very comfortable in the post down the stretch. So there's that part of it. Obviously, it's real. We have to talk about it, but I can't like break it down any more than that.
Sure.
Second part is, what was the other part of their second half defense that spurred it last season? It was after they traded for PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, and then they started Derrick Jones Jr., and they had Derek Lively continue to turn into the badass that he is. And then, plus you got Maxi Kleber off the bench. That's 5 guys. One of them is playing right now, and that's Daniel Gafford. Another one got swapped out for Najee Marshall, and the results are varied there. I don't know how bad of a drop-off that's been so far this season, but I need to watch it. Like, I can't make a definitive call. Like, I don't think he was really bad defensively tonight, but also I don't think he's the type of athletic defensive maker that Derrick Jones was. But you knew that going in. And again, the upside is you get the ball handling, you get the scoring, you get the passing. So I think he's evening that out. But no PJ, no Lively, no Maxi, no Dante Exum, who is also part of that at times. Like, they're just missing a lot of their defenders. Like, take away the PJ the Marshall, Derrick Jones stuff. Like, no Lively, no PJ, no Maxi. Those were 3 of their most important defenders in the second half of last season.
So this is an incredible comment from the chat that I posted.
Keep going. Sorry. I was looking at box score.
It says Cooper Flag and Travis Hunter might be looking for downtown Dallas apartments together. It's just a tear. That's why I love live shows, man. Thank you, The Chosen One. That's really funny. I needed to laugh. I was getting a little too cranky.
I know. Okay.
Go ahead, though.
So yeah, like they're missing defenders, right? So it's not surprising that their defense looks worse. And I know people want to, I don't want to be like an injury guy. Like like I just said, with the reffing and the officiating, they got to play the hand they're dealt. They got to play this hand too. They got to figure something out. And they really couldn't. Like the Nuggets are such a bad matchup when you're like Lively did such a good job against Jokic in that March regular season game the Mavericks won. Like his length really bothered him. Gafford is just not the same defensive player. And it's just tough. That's why the Grimes stuff is really weird. Like you're already behind the 8 ball and you're not playing theoretically one of your better defenders, but maybe Kid's got his reasons for that. But I don't see a way until Lively and Washington come back that the defense is going to look the way people want it to look. And I can't, like, what's the scheme answer for your missing 3 of your best defenders?
One simple scheme adjustment that I would go with, and this is absolutely fucking crazy. Don't give Nikola Jokic wide open top of the key.
That sucked.
That's a simple prognostication I'm going to make. I'm a layman, I'm not an expert, but don't give that guy who I'm pretty sure I need to go see what he's shooting from 3 this year. This guy, he is shooting 53% from the 3-point line this season. What are we doing?
Yeah. And that's Gafford can't remember. We saw that. And anytime Gafford goes like up against the stretch 5, like they can't. And we talk about the Mavericks defense. Remember last season why their defense was so good was because they beat the crap out of people and they don't let you score in the paint. They don't let you score at the rim. And remember, there were still games, even when they were good in the playoffs, where teams got hot from 3. And the Mavericks have kind of conceded, like, hey, if you're going to get hot from 3, so be it. We're not going to let you consistently score 2s, because their philosophy was scoring at the rim is a more consistent, reliable shot than a 3-point. Like even an open 3-pointer is what, like it's less than a half chance. It's like what, a 40 to 48% chance shot, like a wide open 3 from a good shooter. That's still a worse percentage technically than like a layup, which is what, like 70%. So they made the bet. They're like, okay, if we take away your easy twos, we're gonna bet on the variation on jump shots working in our favor more often than not.
They shot 48% from 3-point line.
So and by the way, only 3 of them were corner threes.
Yes,
so
it's
above the break, which is the threes that the Mavericks want to give up. They were also, the Nuggets were 6 of 10 on mid-range jumpers. I don't want to say like, oh, throw up your hands because there's nothing you can do, because Kirk, you know me, I hate that excuse as a defender. But I think
for a positive to take away from it, though, it's like you never beat a team that outscored you from 3. They hit 12 more points worth of 3-pointers.
Right, that's huge. So, and the Nuggets were, I had it. They were 17 of 32 in the restricted area, 53%, which is like, that's a great percentage. Now, the problem is they shot 32 times in the restricted area. So they still ended up with 17 makes, and this is where the defense breaks down when you're missing on your defenders. They defended okay at the rim, but they gave up so many rim attempts. The Nuggets still scored 50 points in the paint. And I think this Mavericks team is not very good when they give up 50 points or more in the paint, because they're already behind the gun on 3-pointers, because this isn't a great 3-point shooting team.
So God Tan Growth asks in the chat, what is the solution for defending stretch 5's more Lively minutes? Honestly, I think if Lively was in this game, they still would have given up those Jokic threes. That's part of what I'm lamenting.
You put PJ on Jokic, right?
There's some strategy involved here where the Mavericks are seeding the 3-point line to a degree that they're not giving, that they got beat on above the break corner threes. I don't know what Kid is saying in post game. He's probably talking in post game about how they executed their game plan and the Suns won. Like I'm sorry, the Nuggets won. And I guess I could see that to a degree from a big picture perspective, but then you look at like these individual moments and it makes you want to stab yourself in the eyes.
No. No. I understand. And I was gonna make a point. You said something and I wanted to jump off of it. Like we have, like, offensively, like I don't want to get it. We haven't really talked about their offense too much, because like they shot pretty well. They scored, holy crap, they scored 62 points in the paint. They had 42 of those in the first half. That's kind of how the first half, second half went. The Nuggets were blitzing Luka in the first half, which is like the stupidest thing ever. And it's even dumber when the Nuggets are doing it without Aaron Gordon, because that means Jokic is up. Who's the Nuggets back line? Like Luka was just picking them apart, and Gafford was getting so many easy looks around the basket because the Nuggets had no back line.
What do we do though with that? What do we like? What do we make of the fact that Luka doesn't seem to want to take these close shots right now? What is going on with this stuff?
Let me see. I think he was good in the paint tonight.
He had a cut. He had a cut for a layup, and he got off a pass.
He was 7 of 9 in the paint tonight. Like, did you want more? I mean, probably.
I did. I do want more. I do actually, in fact, want more.
I know you do want more. He was.
I want him to play like Giannis.
He was 2 of 10 outside of the paint, which is
that's bad. Like, you go look at his. And you have, but you're better looking at shooting data than I am. But if you go to like basketballreference.com, you click on Luka's 2025 shooting season, you get the shot charts and it shows you every single shot he's taken with X's or squares. You can click and look at the 10 to 15 feet range, and then the 16 feet, then 16 feet to 3-point line. And he's not the 10 to 15 footers. He's shooting under 40%.
Which used to be his bread and butter.
His bread and butter, and then the restricted area, which you pointed out over and over again, like the like at the rim, like 3 to 10 feet, he's shooting 40%. Like,
that's also good, yeah.
I can't believe I'm going to say this. He's got to shoot himself through this. He's giving up looks right now that are driving me crazy. Or he settles for a fade from those spots, which his legs don't look in it. Like, if he's having groin issues, if he's having calf issues, if he's having thigh issues, I don't want to make excuses and say that's the reason that he's shooting, but you have to at least give some credence to the thought that he probably doesn't have the normal kind of power on these shots, which is why they all look flat and short.
Yeah. And I thought he played a great first half. offensively because he took what the defense gave him. Let me see if I can get the first half stats to update here. Yeah, I think he had a bunch of assists in the first. Like he was passing really well because they're doubling. Yeah, he had 6 assists in the first half. He had 12 points, and I thought things were going well. Second half, and then because they were blitzing him, and he loves to be blitzed. Because I mean, like I said, this team's at its best when Luka is passing. I don't think it's a coincidence that he had 3 assists in the second half compared to 6 in the first. And the second half is when things kind of went.
And I feel like at least 2 of his assists were like, I'm giving the ball to Kyrie, who's going to drill a 35-footer.
Yeah, for sure. Because the Nuggets stopped blitzing and they went to more drop. And he shot 5 of 11, which is okay. Like he shot okay in the paint, but he was 1 of 5 on threes. He tried to take some threes with that against that drop defense. And he didn't have his 3. And then he had that, I don't want to get yelled at tonight, but like that 3 we talked about at the top of the show that, before the Nuggets got their game winner that was an atrocious position. That was really, really bad. But they got to figure out a way, even with these players that are out, they need to figure out a way to score against these defenses consistently and get Luka feeling comfortable when they're not blitzing, because teams are figuring this out. And I don't know why if the Nuggets didn't blitz in the first half, they would have won this game by 20, because they would have been up by like 15 at halftime. And then maybe they would have survived the Kyrie barrage and then pulled away because they stopped blitzing in the second half. And Luka was not as effective as he was in the second half as he was in the first half. Teams are going to start doing this more. And
that's
the
what
answer
they did from All-Star break for like the first 6 games. You and I were kind of freaking out last year. Like
I know, and that's what the Nuggets.
Break.
That's what the Boston did in the finals. There's answers to this. That's scheme wise. Like what Luka has to do is he has to be better, like you said, at those 2 areas, the 3 to 10 range and the 10 to 15. Like he can't shoot 40% on those shots. He has to be better.
Two series of thoughts. First, Javier in the chat says Kirk, he just can't get to the rim anymore, meaning Luka. And then Brian says the moral of this season is Luka used to be I have an answer for every defense man, and now if teams don't trap or blitz him, he's DeMar DeRozan without the efficiency. 2 very different, but I think same. Like you're driving towards the same point. Here's my counter to the first one regarding getting to the rim. I watched Luka pass out of layups 4 times tonight.
He had a really bad one on the fast break that Najee.
Najee blew. He passed one out. He had a right-handed layup that he passed out to Spencer Dinwiddie for a atrocious 3. He's giving up shots because that's just how Luka's brain works.
Because, like I said, he likes to pass. Like I know people.
So it's
go ahead.
And then there's the quasi DeRozan comment, which is just funny, and it's like, Luka has solved every basketball thing that's ever been thrown at him, right? That's just sort of the way. So I have to take Luka in the bet over enough games and over enough tape, but it's really uncomfortable to watch at certain points because and this is where Javier's coming in and saying, Kirk, he can't get to the rim. He's stopping. He's stopping because he's in his brain, he's like, well, I'm going to get this contact, absorb the contact. I'm going to get the foul and it's going to go. And instead he's fading away. I almost feel like at this point with how he's shooting, I bet the scouting report says we'll live with the Luka 10-foot fadeaway. We'll live with that. And it's so.
Yeah. And here's the stat. This is what you're looking for. So this is 9 games in Basketball Reference and updated it for tonight. Percentage of field goal attempts by distance, 0 to 3 feet. So that's basically the restricted area. That's the rim. He's at 10.7% rim rate. That is if that held for the season, that would be a career low by 2%. Last season, he was at 12.3. Season before, 17.6 for rim shots. Season before that, 12.8. 18, 26, his second season, and 20% was his rookie year. So he's at 10% of his total field goal attempts are at the rim. That's the lowest of his career by 2%. Again, 10 games in, he could go on a haymaker for 5 games, and that number looks completely different. But it explains what we're seeing to this point.
What's he shooting from three? You might.
What is he like? Just percentage?
Yeah,
he's at 34%. Before tonight, he was at 34%, so that went down. So
with the volume of threes he shoots per game, this matters. Luka shot 39% from three last year. 39. 5% is a massive swing on a guy who shoots 8 to 10 a game. One of the things I wrote in my preview about Luka's season is Luka shooting an outlier? Because it's a fair thing to ask. I just think it is. Now,
last season was what his career high by
his career high. He got
4.
more. I think he took more catch and shoot threes last season than he might have taken in his career.
Yeah,
okay,
because of the Kyrie effect.
Yes, yeah, and CD83 says 39% is excellent. That's exactly right. I mean, you're making 4 out of every 10. It was why he was arguably why he was an MVP. Seeker asking why we're not talking about how are we not getting 10. Well, because Clay has somehow.
Yeah, do you want to talk about Clay?
I think we should talk about Clay for a second. Yeah. The Clay floater air ball.
Oh, that killed you, didn't it?
It was so funny because it looks like something I would do in pickup, you know?
I would like to apologize because I'm pretty sure I wrote that story about Clay being good.
And then he died.
It
was amazing for the first 3 games. These last 7, some of the shots he's taking I don't like the shots he's taking. He's taking shots off the dribble.
It looks like he's taking shots because he's like, I don't know when I'm going to get another shot. Like pressing.
And I think if you're a critic of, and so this is where you're just running into these different challenges within the Mavericks offense, where some people are like saying Luka just needs to go ham, shoot the ball every time. I promise Luka wants to feed Clay 10 shots a game too. Like he wants those threes. Like I think they look for Clay almost to a fault. Luka was trying some of that shit out of and Clay made some nice passes today.
Yeah, he forces like that's the thing is like they got to that's how utilizing his gravity can add that dimension that this team is needed to wean them off of that Luka ball. But like I said, again, the Phoenix game, I think there's going to be some growing pains. Like it's gonna take some time, and I still think this is a good fit. We've seen it work, and I think Clay is a streaky shooter at this point in his career. And I would just say, even, last season when he hit 39% of his threes, like he would go through 5-game stretches where he wouldn't hit anything. He's very streaky right now. So, but he's got to balance that out. And the tough part is they would be able to weather this if they had a full strength. They don't. You're missing 3 of your top 7 rotation players. You need one of your, as bad as you could be at Luka, like he still had 24, 9 and 9 and had a good first half. Kyrie was amazing. And then you look at Clay in 33 minutes, 10 points on 13 shot attempts. Like you need your big 3 to be a big 3 when you're and you have injuries to your other role players.
Read my comment with this is something I want to differentiate. Yeah. I think this is a good question. He says, am I watching a different game? Luka was doubling and passing more. No one else on the team but Kyrie stepped up. Luka was passing more in the first half.
That's what I said in the first half. Yeah.
I just wanted to make that distinction again, where they stopped doubling Luka in the second half, and it made it.
Right. He had 6 of those 9 assists were in the first half. They were blitzing Luka. He had an incredible floor game in the first half. He was seeing everything the right way because he's so good. Like I still can't believe they were blitzing him, but like it's like giving candy to a baby when you blitz Luka. And then in the second half they stopped. They played more drop. He was a little bit more indecisive. He was 1 of 5 from 3 in the second half. He had 3 assists in the second half. And then Kyrie went bananas. And kudos to Luka for just being like he got out of the way and just let Kyrie cook. And I feel bad. Have we even talked about Kyrie?
No,
we haven't really talked about Kyrie.
We did a little bit because we were talking about how incandescent he was. But it's that
was nuts.
A loss just buries stuff like how awesome he was. I'm going to get yelled at for not talking about this.
17 of 22.
I'm the host. What's wrong?
He was Dirk from 2007.
I mean, realistically, he was 17 of 20. Like he took 2 late shots, which sunk his shot, but that were very, very difficult shots.
Yeah, no. That fading banker, like, I mean, this was definitely a fun matchup because like the Mavericks had nothing. They had no answer for Jokic without Lively, without Maxey. And then the Nuggets had no one to guard Kyrie, absolutely no one to guard Kyrie, especially with Aaron Gordon out. And they just went to work. He went to work. Like that was a special shot making game. Like The fact
Some
that
of the
he
stuff off the glass, like the glass work, you don't see that from guards at all.
I don't think it's unreasonable to say that he is. I mean, if the season ended right now, and obviously it's 10 games, he would be an All-NBA player, right?
I think so. I mean, he's been the Mavericks' best player.
He's shooting 50 from the field and 52 from 3.
Yeah.
He's been great. Yeah, I wanted to make sure. I feel like we didn't go gaga enough over that game because, like, that was a ridiculous performance. That was one of the best shooting performances I've ever seen from someone in a Mavericks uniform. And we've watched Dirk, Jason Terry, Steve Nash. Like, we've watched some of the greatest shooters in NBA history in Dallas, and he put a performance that was just as good as any of them. Like, it's a damn shame that he lost that game. Because you're right? Like, doing it in a loss, like, it just buries stuff down, like, and that's kind of unfair to his performance.
Well,
you got someone in the chat. You ready to get rolling with that live show?
Oh, no, it's Mr. Brian. We know we love Mr. Obi. Anybody? So, all right, we're going to hang out. We're talk through a little bit of our frustration. Though what's interesting is sometimes our comments can become like a holy war during the chat. And I don't really see anyone arguing. I see like varying degrees of irritation on what thing is the most frustrating as opposed to, and I think that it's kind of like, what do you think is important or not important? So again, this podcast will be going up right after the game, but then our secondary show, if you're listening to it on a audio stream, that'll get posted on Monday afternoon. Josh and I'll be back Tuesday. Everybody, this is a very heavy game week.
Yep.
Mavericks play today, they play Tuesday, they play Thursday, they play Saturday, they play Sunday. Expect some tired legs at a certain point. Okay. Thank you so much for hanging out. This has been Kirk and Josh with Pod Maverick After Dark. I will be right back with the second show. Everyone else, have a great start to your week. Go Mavs.